The desperate call. The crystal spires of Athros burned against the purple sky as another wave of Crimson Horde fighters screamed overhead. Commander Lyra Voss pressed herself against the reinforced walls of the command bunker, feeling the vibrations of each impact shake the ancient foundations. Through the tactical display, she watched her world die piece by piece. "Defensive Grid 7 has fallen," reported Lieutenant Zora, her voice barely steady. "The northern settlements are completely overrun." Lyra closed her golden eyes, trying to block out the images of her people fleeing in terror. The Zephyrians had always been a peaceful race, their slender forms and graceful movements better suited for art and science than warfare. Their crystalline cities had stood for thousands of years as monuments to harmony and knowledge. Now they crumbled under the relentless assault of the most feared force in the galaxy. The Crimson Horde showed no mercy. These biomechanical monstrosities consumed entire civilizations, adding their victims' technology and biology to their collective strength. What started as a small raiding force had grown into an unstoppable tide of destruction that swept across star systems like a plague. "Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission from Elder Theros," came another voice from the communication station. "Put him through," Lyra commanded, straightening her silver uniform despite the chaos around her. The wizened face of Cain Theros appeared on the main screen, his ancient features etched with desperate determination. Behind him, the great archive burned, centuries of accumulated knowledge turning to ash and smoke. "Lyra, there may be one final option," he said, his voice crackling through the damaged connection. "I've been searching through our oldest records, looking for any species that might help us. Elder, we've already sent distress calls to every member of the Galactic Coalition. Those who could flee have already done so. The others—" Lyra's voice trailed off. Everyone knew what happened to civilizations that stood against the Horde. Theros shook his head, holding up a crystalline data cube that glowed with soft blue light. "Not the Coalition records, child. I mean the truly ancient archives. Records from before the Great Silence, when our people first ventured beyond our system." Lyra leaned forward, grasping at any hope. "What did you find?" "A species called humans," Theros said, activating the cube. Holographic images flickered to life, showing a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. "According to our records from 4 centuries ago, they helped defend the Kepler colonies when the crystal wraiths attacked. The survivors spoke of human courage and ingenuity, how they fought alongside other species despite being technologically inferior. The data showed primitive spacecraft, barely capable of interstellar travel, chemical rockets and early fusion drives, nothing compared to the advanced technology the Zephyrians possessed even centuries ago." "Elder, these records are ancient," Lyra protested. "Even if these humans still exist, they were primitive when our ancestors first observed them. What could they possibly do against the Horde?" Theros gripped the cube tighter as another explosion shook the archive. "What choice do we have? Every other option has failed. Perhaps their perspective, their different way of thinking, might offer something we haven't considered. Sometimes the smallest stone can trigger an avalanche." Before Lyra could respond, the bunker's emergency systems activated. "Commander, massive Horde fleet detected entering the outer system," reported Tactical Officer Nim. "Over 300 vessels, including 7 of their biotitans. Estimated arrival at Athros. 18 hours. Lyra felt her heart sink. 300 ships against their remaining defensive force of 12 damaged vessels. It would be a massacre. "Send the message," she ordered, looking back at Theros. "If these humans are our last hope, then we pray they remember the friendship our peoples once shared." 23 light-years away in the Sol system, Admiral Sarah Chen was reviewing patrol reports in her office aboard Luna Station when the priority alert chimed. At 45, Chen had commanded fleets across 3 sectors of human space, her reputation built on decisive action and strategic brilliance. Her short black hair was streaked with premature silver, and her dark eyes held the weight of command. "Admiral, we're receiving an emergency transmission." Her aide, Lieutenant Commander Torres announced over the comm. It's unusual. Define unusual, Chen replied, not looking up from her tactical assessments. It's from an unknown species, ma'am. They're calling themselves Zephyrians, and they're requesting immediate military assistance. That got Chen's attention. She looked up sharply. Military assistance? From us? Yes, Admiral. The message includes detailed tactical data about something called the Crimson Horde. They appear to be requesting our help in defending their homeworld. Chen stood and walked to her office window, looking out at the sprawling fleet yards of Luna Station. Hundreds of ships moved in organized patterns, from small patrol vessels to massive dreadnoughts. The Human Interstellar Defense Coalition had grown from Earth's scattered nations into a unified force that protected human colonies across 50 star systems. Have Dr. Kowalski analyze the message for authenticity, Chen ordered, and get me Captain Rivera. If this is legitimate, we need to move fast. Dr. Elena Kowalski, the Coalition's chief xenobiologist, worked through the night analyzing the Zephyrian transmission. Her team confirmed what seemed impossible. This was humanity's first contact with a genuinely alien intelligence. The mathematical constants and physical laws referenced in their message prove they came from a legitimate technological civilization. The biological data they've included suggests they're humanoid, but distinctly non-human, she reported to Chen the next morning. Their planet shows signs of advanced technology, and their distress call indicates they're facing extinction from this Crimson Horde entity. Captain Marcus Rivera, Chen's longtime tactical advisor, studied the combat data with growing concern. Admiral, if their intelligence is accurate, we're looking at a biomechanical species that assimilates other civilizations. Think of them as a cross between a virus and a military force. They grow stronger with every victory. Chen nodded grimly. And if they consume the Zephyrians, then they'll eventually find us, Rivera answered. Species like this don't stop expanding until they're stopped by force. Within hours, the Coalition Emergency Council convened. Admiral Chen presented the situation to the assembled leaders of human space. The debate was brief but intense. We're talking about committing significant military resources to defend a species we've never met, argued Councillor Zhang. What if this is some kind of elaborate trap? What if it isn't? Chen countered. The data suggests the Zephyrians are peaceful researchers and artists. If we abandon them to save our own resources, what does that say about humanity's principles? Council President Williams studied the tactical displays showing the Crimson Horde's projected expansion patterns. If this threat is real, it will eventually reach human space regardless of whether we act now. Better to fight them while we have allies. The vote was unanimous. Chen would take the 7th Fleet to assist the Zephyrians. The mobilization began immediately. 200 ships of the 7th Fleet prepared for the longest jump in human military history. The flagship Indomitable, a massive dreadnought bristling with the latest human weapons technology, would lead the force. Accompanying it were 40 heavy cruisers, 80 destroyers, 60 support vessels, and 20 specialized assault carriers. As Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the final preparations, Dr. Kowalski approached with a puzzled expression. Admiral, I've been analyzing the Zephyrian records they sent us. According to their data, they observed Earth over 400 years ago. Their information shows us as having just developed chemical rockets and basic radio communication. Chen raised an eyebrow. They think we're still at that level. It appears so. Their message suggests they expect us to send perhaps a single ship, maybe a diplomatic envoy. They have no idea what humanity has become. Rivera joined the conversation, shaking his head in amazement. So they reached out to what they thought was a barely spacefaring species for help against a galaxy-spanning threat. That takes either incredible desperation or remarkable faith in the power of friendship. Both, I think, Chen replied, looking out at her massive fleet. Well, they're about to get the surprise of their lives. Helm, prepare for fleet jump. All ships report ready status. All ships ready, Admiral, came the response. Jump in 3, 2, 1. Execute. The stars shifted, and 200 human warships vanished into hyperspace, racing toward a desperate battle 23 light-years away. Back on Athros, Commander Voss stood in what remained of the Planetary Defense Center. The Crimson Horde had begun their final assault, their grotesque bioships descending like a swarm of metallic locusts. The sky burned red with the light of falling cities. "Any response from the humans?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Nothing, Commander," reported Lieutenant Zora. "Even if they received our message, they would need time to prepare any response. Time we don't have." Lyra nodded, accepting their fate. "Then we make our last stand here. Every moment we buy might allow some of our people to escape to the outer colonies." She had just reached for her weapon when Tactical Officer Nim called out in shock. "Commander, massive energy signatures detected at the system's edge. Something's jumping in." The tactical display lit up with new contacts. One after another, ships appeared in Zephyrian space. Small ships, large ships, ships whose energy signatures were completely unknown to Zephyrian technology. "How many?" Lyra whispered. Name's voice cracked as he counted. "Over 200 vessels, Commander. The largest energy signatures are off our scales. Whatever these ships are, they're more advanced than anything in our databases." "Are they Horde reinforcements?" "No, Mom. The hull configurations are completely different, and they're broadcasting on the frequency the humans promised to use." Lyra stared at the display in disbelief. The small stone Elder Theros had spoken of was turning out to be an avalanche beyond their wildest dreams. Humanity had not just answered their call for help, they had sent an entire fleet. As the human ships moved deeper into the system, the Crimson Horde forces began to adjust their formations, recognizing a new threat had entered the battlefield. The Biotitans, massive creatures fused with technology, turned their attention from the dying Zephyrian defenses to face this unexpected challenger. "Commander," came a new voice over the communication system, speaking perfect Zephyrian through advanced translation protocols. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Interstellar Defense Coalition. We received your distress call. Sorry we're late to the party." When giants answer. The bridge of the Indomitable hummed with controlled energy as Admiral Chen studied the tactical situation unfolding before them. The holographic display showed the Zephyrian system in stark detail. A beautiful blue-green world surrounded by a cloud of predatory biomechanical ships that pulsed with malevolent energy. "Initial scan complete, Admiral," reported Commander Hayes from the sensor station. "Confirmed 7 Biotitans, each approximately 3 kilometers in length. Estimated total Horde force, 347 vessels of various classifications." Captain Rivera whistled low. They weren't exaggerating about the threat level. Those Biotitans read as partially organic. They're actually growing their ships. Dr. Kowalski, monitoring from her station, added grimly, "The biological components appear to be assimilated from previous civilizations. I'm detecting cellular structures from at least 12 different species integrated into their hull matrix." Chen nodded, her expression hard. "Status of Zephyrian defenses?" "Minimal," Hayes replied. 11 vessels remaining operational, all showing significant damage. Their planetary shields are failing in multiple sectors. From the energy signatures, I estimate they have perhaps 4 hours before complete planetary surface bombardment begins." "Admiral," came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Torres, "the Zephyrians are requesting direct communication." "Put them through." The main display shifted to show a slender humanoid figure with golden skin and large, expressive eyes that held a mixture of hope and disbelief. Her uniform was torn and stained, evidence of the desperate battle she had been fighting. "Admiral Chen," the Zephyrian said, "I am Commander Lyra Voss of the Athros Defense Force. We cannot express our gratitude that you have come. Though I must confess, We did not expect quite so many of you. Chen smiled slightly. Commander Voss, your intelligence on our capabilities appears to be somewhat outdated. We'll discuss that later. Right now, let's focus on dealing with your uninvited guests. Admiral, our records indicate these creatures have destroyed 47 civilizations over the past century. They adapt to every weapon system they encounter, incorporating defeated technologies into their own. Our quantum pulse weapons were effective for perhaps 3 engagements before they developed countermeasures. Rivera leaned forward, intrigued. How long did that adaptation process take? Approximately 6 hours for basic countermeasures, 18 hours for complete immunity, Voss replied. Fascinating, Dr. Kowalski murmured. A collective learning organism. But Admiral, that gives us an advantage. Chen raised an eyebrow. Explain. They adapt to technologies they've encountered. But human weapon systems have developed in complete isolation from galactic warfare. They'll need time to analyze and counter our specific approaches. Time we're going to make sure they don't get, Chen declared. She turned back to the display. Commander Voss, I'm transmitting our tactical frequencies. We're going to coordinate a joint strike while they're still figuring out what we're capable of. The human fleet moved with precision that astounded the Zephyrians. 200 ships arranged themselves in combat formations that seemed to flow like liquid mercury, each vessel perfectly positioned to support its neighbors while maintaining optimal firing angles. My ancestors' records spoke of human courage, Voss whispered to her tactical officer, but they said nothing about this level of military sophistication. The first engagement began when a squadron of Horde biofighters broke from the main formation to probe the human defenses. Admiral Chen watched calmly as 20 enemy vessels approached her outer screening force. Destroyer Squadron 4, you are cleared to engage, she ordered. Acknowledged, Admiral. Fox Squadron moving to intercept. What happened next redefined Zephyrian understanding of space combat. The human destroyers didn't simply fire at the approaching biofighters. They executed a complex tactical maneuver that split their formation, allowing crossfire while preventing the enemy from concentrating their response. Their weapons fired coherent energy beams that punched through bio-armor like it was paper. In 47 seconds, 20 Horde fighters were reduced to drifting debris. Incredible, breathed Elder Theros, who had joined Voss in the command center. Their tactical coordination is beyond anything I've ever witnessed. The Horde responded by launching 200 fighters simultaneously, attempting to overwhelm the human screening force through sheer numbers. This time, the human carriers deployed their own fighters, and the Zephyrians got their first look at human pilot training. Human fighters moved like extensions of their pilot's will, executing maneuvers that seemed to violate several laws of physics. Their weapon systems rotated through multiple firing modes, never allowing the biofighters time to adapt to any single approach. Admiral Chen, Voss called over the communication link. Your pilots are fighting like they've encountered the Horde before. How is that possible? Simulation training, Commander, Chen replied, never taking her eyes off the tactical display. For the past century, we've war-gamed against every theoretical enemy we could imagine, including adaptive biomechanical collectives. You prepared for an enemy you had never met. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, Captain Rivera answered. It's an old human saying. As the fighter engagement continued, the Bio-Titans began moving toward the human main force. These massive creatures were clearly the command and control units of the Horde, their biomechanical forms bristling with weapon systems that had been refined through dozens of conquered civilizations. Admiral, Bio-Titans are accelerating toward our position, reported Commander Hayes. Energy buildup suggests they're preparing to fire their primary weapons. All heavy cruisers target the lead Bio-Titan. Prepare synchronized bombardment, Chen ordered. Dr. Kowalski, are you ready with the special package? The xenobiologist nodded grimly. The viral warfare protocols are loaded and standing by. If these creatures truly are biomechanical hybrids, this should disrupt their organic components significantly. 40 heavy cruisers opened fire simultaneously, their quantum torpedoes and plasma cannons focusing on a single bio-titan. The creature's bio-armor absorbed the first wave of attacks, its adaptive properties already working to counter the human weapons. But then the viral package deployed. "What are you doing?" Voss asked, watching her sensors register something she had never seen before. "Biological warfare," Chen replied simply. "If they want to use organic components in their ships, they need to accept organic vulnerabilities." The targeted bio-titan began to convulse as human-designed viruses attacked its biological systems. These weren't naturally occurring pathogens, but carefully engineered programs designed to disrupt biomechanical integration. Within minutes, the massive creature's coordination systems failed, and it began drifting helplessly as its weapons systems went offline. The remaining bio-titans hesitated, their collective intelligence processing this new threat. In that moment of uncertainty, Admiral Chen struck. "All ships, execute Plan Omega. Maximum firepower, all targets." The human fleet unleashed everything at once. Quantum torpedoes, plasma cannons, kinetic penetrators, and experimental energy weapons systems that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. The concentrated firepower of 200 advanced warships focused on the remaining Horde forces with devastating effect. But Chen had saved the best for last. Indomitable, fire the Nova Cannon. The flagship's main weapon, a massive directed energy projector that drew power from a contained stellar core, discharged a beam of coherent energy that turned space itself into plasma. The beam carved through 3 bio-titans simultaneously, their adaptive armor useless against the raw power of a miniaturized star. The remaining Horde forces, faced with weapons and tactics they had never encountered, began a rapid withdrawal. Their collective intelligence calculated that adaptation would require resources they couldn't afford to lose, especially against an enemy whose full capabilities remained unknown. "They're retreating," announced Commander Hayes with amazement. "The entire Horde fleet is jumping out of the system." Voss stared at her displays in shock. "In 3 hours, you've accomplished what our entire civilization couldn't do in months of fighting." "Commander, we'd like to discuss establishing a permanent alliance," Chen said, turning back to the communication display. "If the Horde is still out there, they'll be back once they've adapted to our tactics. We need to be ready." 6 hours later, Admiral Chen stood in the restored council chamber of Athros, surrounded by Zephyrian leaders whose golden skins seemed to glow with renewed hope. The massive chamber, with its crystal architecture and floating holographic displays, was a testament to a civilization that valued beauty alongside functionality. Elder Theros approached, carrying an ornate crystalline tablet. "Admiral, this is a token of the eternal friendship between our peoples. Our archives will record this day as the beginning of a new era. Elder, I hope you'll update those archives with current information about humanity," Chen replied with a smile. "We've changed considerably since your ancestors last visited Earth." Chancellor Orin Valdris, the political leader of the Zephyrian High Council, stepped forward. "Admiral, we have much to offer in return for your protection. Our knowledge of biotechnology, our understanding of quantum mechanics, our artistic and cultural achievements. And we have much to learn," Chen agreed. "But this alliance needs to be about more than just mutual defense. The galaxy is vast, and if species like the Crimson Horde exist, there are likely others who need help." Dr. Kowalski, who had been quietly observing the cultural exchange, added, "The Zephyrians have records of 47 civilizations destroyed by the Horde. Some of those might have survivors in hidden colonies or refugee fleets. Together, we could find them, help them rebuild." Commander Voss nodded enthusiastically. "A coalition of survivors, growing stronger with each species we help. The Horde feeds on conquest and assimilation, but we could offer the opposite: voluntary cooperation and mutual support. The Interstellar Defense Coalition." River amused. "I like the sound of that." As the discussions continued, Admiral Chen looked out through the crystal windows at her fleet, now orbiting peacefully alongside the rebuilt Zephyrian vessels. In the distance, work crews were already beginning the reconstruction of damaged cities, with human engineering teams working alongside Zephyrian architects to create something new and beautiful from the ruins. The accidental call for help had become something far greater than either species had imagined. Humanity had answered a desperate plea and found not just new allies, but a new purpose in the galaxy. The Zephyrians had reached out to what they thought was a small primitive species and discovered that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the most unexpected places. And somewhere in the depths of space, the Crimson Horde regrouped and adapted, planning their return. But now they would face not just one species, but an alliance of civilizations united by a simple principle that humanity had carried to the stars. No one fights alone. The age of human expansion had begun, not through conquest, but through compassion. And the galaxy would never be the same.